The Indian government is all set to execute the world's largest evacuation plan. To talk about that and the future of the Indian aviation sector at a time like this of coronavirus, talking to us today at ET Now is the Civil Aviation Minister, Mr. Hardeep Singh Puri. Sir, appreciate you taking your time out and speaking to us at ET Now. This is Ruchi, Bhatia. I hope you and your family and your staff, everybody in the ministry is also keeping well and safe during these times. Let me first then, sir, begin by talking about the Vande Bharat mission. This is the mega evacuation plan that the ministry is in fact going ahead with. The first flight from Kerala has already taken off. The Indian Navy ships have also entered the Malé port. The government is looking to bring back almost 15,000 stranded Indians abroad. However, many say that the number of people who would want to return back to their country will be far higher. At a time like this, how are you bracing and how is the ministry bracing for such a high demand as well?
Ruchi, thank you very much. I'm glad to be on your show. Let me start by doing some context setting. You described this as a major or a huge evacuation exercise. Let me start by saying that this is, as far as I'm aware, the largest program and process for evacuation of Indian citizens which has ever been attempted. Largest in terms of the numbers, but there's another defining characteristic, which is that it is being conducted in a very difficult set of circumstances. Because a normal evacuation is difficult enough, because you have to tie up a lot of logistical points. You have to bring people by surface transport. We have to put them in aircraft or on naval ships. Then you have to carry them. But here you have another issue, which is that there is a risk during the transportation of the infection spreading. So we have taken our time. We have drawn up a comprehensive program. The working numbers that we are using for this program are 190,000 people. But when we started the exercise, it became abundantly clear that the total number may have to be well beyond 190,000. But for the moment, we are confining ourselves to a number of 190,000. In the first week of operations, which are starting today, we will be carrying something close to 14,800 passengers on 64 flights between today and 13th of May. This requires screening of passengers before they board flights. This requires safety procedures and precautions within the flight. It requires certain procedures to be followed at the landing point in different airports. And most important, it requires the state governments concerned to put in place mandatory paid quarantine arrangements for all incoming passengers for a period of 14 days. How confident am I? I think we have done our bit. All stakeholders, the airline, our embassies, the state governments, the Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of Health, all of us have collaborated, and now we will review this on a daily basis, which I do already twice a day, and we will see after 2 or 3 days of the evacuation process whether we are in a position to increase the number of flights, increase the number of passengers coming in, add more cities, more points of embarkation. All those decisions will be taken within the few days after we review the progress so far.
Right. So if you're a stranded Indian abroad and if you're not getting the flights back to India just yet, the Indian government is all set to make provisions for you in the next couple of days as well. That is the Civil Aviation Minister telling us right here on ET Now. So you were talking about the challenges and the kind of preparations that the ministry and the state governments, the central government is doing at this point of time with respect to quarantining these people who will come back as well. The tickets will be self-funded. What about the quarantine facilities? Are that also going to be self-funded by people?
Yes, these are paid quarantine facilities. But my understanding is that, there will be different gradations. If you choose a paid quarantine facility, for instance, in a 3-star hotel or something like that, that is one. State governments may provide other paid facilities, but those are decisions individually which each state government will take.
So this is going to be a paid quarantine facility. It's interesting that you're giving that clarification here on ET now, sir. At this point of time, sir, since we could see in the days to come more cities being added, a lot more people coming back, stranded Indians coming back to the country. You also said that there is a possibility that the government may try to rope in private airlines as well for this entire exercise. Have the private airlines approached the government for that so far?
Ruchi, I am not aware of any private airlines having approached us formally, but perhaps the time for that has not yet come. As I mentioned, we have drawn up a plan initially to bring back something like 190,000 Indian citizens stranded or in distress in these countries. During the first week, we are only bringing back 14,800, which in a sense is only the tip of the iceberg. Now, I have heard statements by some of the private airline operators, which they've also sent some signals to us that if the need arises, they would be open to the suggestion. But this is not a formal, we've not had any formal discussions with them. They would also like to contribute to the evacuation efforts. The terms and conditions of that contribution can be discussed. But as I said, that is an issue we would address only at a subsequent stage when the need arises. Just now, Air India and Air India Express, all other parts of the government like the naval ships, etc., they are fully geared to deal with this situation, and we will review the situation. And if after a few days we need to ramp up the numbers, we will take that decision.
So how open is the government to the idea of allowing this rescue of domestic passengers as well? We're getting all sorts of people asking that if they are stuck in a state, why is the government not allowing them to fly back to their respective homes? Is that something that the government is actively considering now?
I am not sure who's making the comment, but let me provide a perspective, Ruchi. The government was forced to take action and order a complete lockdown of the country on 23rd March, because it became clear at that point of time that if we don't take that decision, the numbers affected by the virus would grow exponentially. And from being in category 2 or stage 2, we would go to stage 3. This is an infection which has come to us through travelers coming from abroad. It's not a virus which grew here. Now, we clamped down, as a result of which, after 23rd March, when we clamped down to today, 8th May, we are one country with one of the largest population and one of the smallest numbers affected. Today, we have something like 50,000 of our citizens affected by the virus. The doubling rate is about 12 days or so. The total number of deaths is only 1,600. I know one death is one death too many, but you compare that to the situation in the United States or the United Kingdom. In New York, 2,000 people were dying every day. Now, surely those people who are wanting to travel are not unaware of this reality. We had to clamp down because we wanted to save our population. Now I realize that sometimes you have to make a difficult choice, as the Prime Minister has so eloquently put it, the choice between life and livelihood, Jaan and Jahan. Now, there will come a time when we feel confident to open up the domestic civil aviation sector. You will find that suggestions on social media, they take the easy way out. The Prime Minister is responsible and is discharging that responsibility because he has to look at the life and livelihood of entire population of 135 crores. Now, we are already in a process which is There is a lockdown here, both for domestic and international traffic. And yet, the Prime Minister and the Home Minister and the rest of the government, we have agreed to carrying out this evacuation. Why? Because these are our citizens about whom we have an obligation. They are stranded. They are in distress. Many of them don't have visas. Many of them are without jobs. Many of them are facing deportation. So they are a priority. Our overall approach is, please stay where you are and stay safe. But these people cannot continue to stay there because they don't have visas. So we are bringing them back. Equally, those of our nationals who are ordinarily resident abroad,
Sir, talking about
they are also wanting to go abroad if they can. But we have a problem. Many of the countries are not taking back nationals other than their own. So, Ruchi, it's a difficult situation, but we will open up domestic civil aviation when the situation permits. I don't have a date, and I keep saying the decisions remain to be taken, but I don't think we should get unduly perturbed about some person being stranded. Our heart goes out to them. We fully feel. But sometimes, if you are subjected to premature travel and you are, it adds to the risk. So we are going to be taking these decisions after evaluating all factors.
Absolutely. Sir, let me come in on that. The fact that you said that this is a time when a lot of difficult choices have to be made. And speaking about private airlines, they are also facing a massive challenge. Some of them are telling their staff to take leave without pay. Some of them are deferring pilot salaries. Some of them are saying that they are now going to pay their staff on an hourly basis. How worrying is this trend for a sunrise sector? Something that you are looking at very closely as the minister as well.
Ruchi, it's not them telling. The fact is, many of the airlines have sent their staff on leave without pay. Many of them have been on leave without pay for a long time. So it's a difficult situation. All the stakeholders, the airline operators, the airport operators, the tour operators, the hotels, they are going through an economic crisis, if I may use the word. But we have to somehow manage that transition between 23rd March and when the sector is ready to open out. And all I can say is that we are in constant touch with everyone. We are trying to find ways and means of addressing their concern. Some things are more easily doable than others. Well, we'll do the best we can. But that's not the situation insofar as the civil aviation industry alone is affected. The MSME sector, I've seen members of your profession, the journalists want a package. And so are others affected. So we will meet this situation. We will try and find the solution, but it's not an easy task.
It's not going to be an easy task, but as the Minister of Civil Aviation, sir, how are you going to balance the needs of the sector vis-a-vis India's own financial and fiscal position as well? Our revenues are strained. Disinvestment drive hasn't really moved in the way we had wanted it to. So how is the balancing act going to happen? You did say that there will be certain low-hanging fruit, certain easier things that can be done for the airline sector. Where are things moving on that, and how is the balancing act really going to play out?
Well, this is a situation which is not peculiar to India, but all I can tell you is that I don't like the idea of anticipating the difficult choices my senior colleague, the finance minister, has to make. There are demands for stimulus or stimuli packages from all sections of the economy, but we will move ahead. We will carry out the required reforms in each of these sectors where government can help out. That help will be extended. I also happen to be Minister for Housing and Urban Affairs. And the construction industry, with the lockdown, projects are stalled. The projects were already under strain prior to the coronavirus. The airline industry was also under strain prior to the coronavirus. So I think an overall judicious balancing of what is doable will be undertaken. And as I said, my senior colleague, the finance minister, has a job on our hands, and I'm sure in discussion with the Prime Minister and discussion with the stakeholders, we will take the required decisions going forward.
So the task is cut out for the finance minister. Can you help us with the timeline? And if India's package for the airline sector, can we look at something like what the US has done? US has announced that they will be giving a relief package to the tune of $25 billion. Can India do something like that, sir?
I am not going to get involved in a purely hypothetical and speculative discussion. We are not the United States. United States is a $20 trillion economy. We were at less than $3 trillion. We have 135 crore population, and we have a lot of migrant labor. We have other people who are living below the poverty line. So I don't think it's a very profitable line to go down. Whatever can be done for different sectors will be done, but you don't draw comparisons with the United States. That's not a productive discussion.
So let me talk about the future of flying. We've been hearing how once the airline sector opens up, things could look very different. What are you telling the airlines at this point of time? Because a lot of them really feel that if the middle seats are removed, if they have to rework their planes also from inside, it may become unviable for them to fly short distances, and that is going to impact the government's own Udan scheme as well. So what is the kind of conversation that you're having with the airlines in terms of what the future may look like?
First of all, we are having a very productive, continuing and a robust discussion with the airline. Removing the middle seat is not part of the discussion because no one is recommending that. The world over, people are flying. You see, if you remove the middle seat, what do? I mean, you still don't have physical distance. So if you want civil aviation to take place, the middle seat idea is not a idea I would pursue. You will take other precaution. You will make sure that queuing doesn't take place. Maybe you can print out your boarding pass at home. Maybe you can print out your baggage tag at home. Maybe you can use masks with good quality air filters. And, with the other precaution that you can take inside an aircraft, you can make air travel as risk-free as you possibly can. But there's no means of saying that there is no risk involved. So those are decisions which the traveler has to take, that you travel at your own risk, but the system, the government, the civil aviation, etc. I am very optimistic about the future of the Indian civil aviation sector. The airlines have to survive. When we restart the operation, you'll find countries like India, which India has the world's third largest domestic civil aviation sector, countries like India, which have their own country, their own people to fly, and which have international routes, they will come out of this smiling. Others will get into trouble. Who are the others? Who are artificially created. Now, if you bought hundreds and thousands of planes because you were hoping to carry other people's traffic, and if the traffic scenario, travel scenario changes, those are the people who will have difficulty. I don't see the Indian airline. I mean, they have a small, short-term challenge on their hands because many of them have taken loans. Those loans have to be repaid. Now, those who have given the loans and those who have taken the loans must realize that we are in a difficult situation. Unless we tide over the next 6 weeks or so, or whenever the sector is ready to open up, we'll have difficulty further ahead. But look, I'm very confident Indian civil aviation will come out of this stronger and much more robust than we had earlier.
So is the government also in talks with the banks to provide some sort of credit lines as well to the aviation sector? Because as you yourself pointed out, this seems to be the need of the hour. And let me just add on to that. Do you see the need to invoke the force majeure clause at this point of time for the aviation sector and also for the real estate sector?
Look, let me first tell you, this is not a discussion. My discussion with the finance ministry or my discussion with the banks is not something I carry out through you or any other TV this thing. You can ask me general questions. Are we aware of what needs to be done? The answer is yes. Am I able to anticipate what the reaction of the other person is going to be? I can be in discussion with them, but this is not a TV discussion.
All right, sir. Appreciate you, you telling us that. But the reason that I asked that question was just to understand in terms of the financial needs of the airline sector, because you yourself pointed out that while the future is promising for the Indian aviation sector, there seem to be some sort of issues currently.
Let me encourage you. You are young, and stick to the overall civil aviation sector. We are in touch with the airlines directly. I don't think the airlines need you to be asking these questions. We are already in touch with them directly. Thank you very much.
Allow me to ask you then a question, sir, that is very relevant from the policy angle as well. The government was hoping to be going ahead with the disinvestment program for Air India, but at a time like this, that I'm sure has hit another snarl. How will the government ensure that Air India's disinvestment drive can also go ahead?
Well, let me share with you that for the moment, all that we have done is we have delayed the receipt of the expression of interest by 2 months. Now, the world pre-COVID and post-COVID will be very different. But one thing that doesn't change is the inherent strength of Air India. It has 120 planes. It flies to 80 destinations within the country. It flies to 40, 50 destinations outside the country. It has a first-rate engineering and, cockpit crew, cabin crew. It also has a flag, a backing of a country. So Air India is a good asset. It was a very good asset prior to COVID. It will be an even better asset after COVID. Now, I don't think at this point of time, when we are engaged with other things, privatization of Air India is really top concern. But it is a process which will go through. And once the thing is over, if we need to tweak the disinvestment process a little, we'll be happy to do so.
All right, sir. And before I let you go, I have to ask you about the real estate sector as well. As the housing minister, the real estate industry at this point of time also has a slew of demands. You've been holding several meetings with them. What kind of assurances have you provided to the real estate sector at this point of time? Some of them are, facing with extreme financial distress, and besides that, the fact that a lot of migrants are now looking to move back to their hometowns, that also seems to be another concern.
Well, let me tell you, Ruchi, the real estate sector, and we are having very comprehensive discussions. I have had long meetings, both through video conference with Naredco, with Credai, ASSOCHAM, FICCI. I'm talking to individuals. The interaction that we have with them is not in the nature as you describe as a demand on us and we do something. They know the problem as well as we do. So does the civil aviation sector. When you are in a difficulty, you sit together and work things out. Now, some of the concerns they had, we have been able to meet through the finance ministry. Like, for instance, the moratorium on repayments applies to them. I'm not going into detail, many more things. We are in touch with the finance ministry. You will be seeing the announcements. But as I said, those are not issues that I discuss or announce. Those are not my portfolio. If there are measures which have to be taken, decision by the finance ministry, finance minister will this thing. But again, let me tell you, we have been very conscious of what needs to be done. We have commenced construction activity where labor is available in close proximity. We have allowed the movement of goods to restart the sector. But you're dealing with an unprecedented situation. It is absolutely legitimate for labor, migrant labor, to want to go. But it is equally legitimate that migrant labor will come back when economic activity resumes. Or if it is resumed and they are fruitfully employed, they may not want to go back to their villages. Now, these are difficult issues, but in a spirit of adjustment between the different stakeholders, we are taking the policy decisions to facilitate this.
So before I let you go, and let me get back to the question on Air India's disinvestment plan as well. You did say that the government would be open to the idea of tweaking, the Air India disinvestment process as well to attract more buyers after COVID. Is that something that, on the debt front that we can look at, maybe make Air India a little more attractive in the post-COVID world when we are seeing businesses come under immense strain?
Ruchi, no matter how many times you say this is the last question before I let you go, my approach to the answer is not going to change. Let me tell you, I use the word tweaking, saying we will consider the situation post-COVID. Whether we need to go ahead with the same package which is on the table, the package has not even been finalized. We have not even said, we have received several suggestions. We are in the process of evaluating those, and then we'll go ahead. Whether it is to be made more attractive or less attractive is not something I'm going to discuss with you on in a television interview.
My job as a journalist is to ask questions, but I appreciate, Mr. Minister, that you were so candid with us as always, and thank you very much for taking out your time today.
Well, I'm very happy to talk to you. I respect your role as a journalist, but I wouldn't be doing my job as a minister if I were to succumb to the temptation of answering every question in a manner which either satisfies some stakeholder or otherwise. I have to be able to present your viewers the picture of what the situation really is. And let me conclude on this note. Look, the situation is difficult, but it is not impossible. Some people will come under strain. They were already under strain. Some people are more vulnerable. But we are in it to provide an enabling, a benign environment in which we can help all the stakeholders in all segments of the economy. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, sir. On that positive note, appreciate you taking your time out this evening. With that, it's back to you at the studios. We will be continuing with more news and updates on the other side.